John never saw it coming. He had worked tirelessly for years, building his business from the ground up. Every late night, every sacrifice, he poured his soul into making his company thrive. His dream was finally becoming a reality, but it was all about to come crashing down. It started small, unnoticed. His wife, Emily, had been distant lately, always busy with her work or spending long hours out of the house. At first, John chalked it up to stress, a minor bump in their otherwise perfect marriage. But the change in her behavior grew too obvious to ignore. The stolen glances, the late-night phone calls she'd quickly end when he entered the room, and the coldness that replaced the warmth they once shared, it all felt wrong. John's suspicions weren't just gut feelings. They were confirmed when he walked into his office one morning, only to find his best friend and business partner, Matt, sitting at his desk, going through financial reports. John froze at the door, unsure of what was happening. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice tight with confusion. Matt looked up, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "Thought I'd get an early start. You've been slacking off a lot lately, John. I'm just making sure things run smoothly while you're distracted." John's heart sank. The words didn't make sense at first, but the weight of the situation hit him like a truck. His trust in Matt, the man he considered family, had been shattered in an instant. As if that wasn't enough, the real shock came when John's phone buzzed. Emily had sent him a text message, and it was anything but ordinary. "I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving you for Matt. I love him." John's legs nearly gave out beneath him. The betrayal wasn't just about his business. It was about the woman he loved, the one he thought would always stand by his side. Emily had been seeing Matt behind his back, planning this for God knows how long. The shock, the anger, the pain, it all felt too much to bear. But little did John know, the worst was yet to come. He had no idea that this heartbreak would set the stage for a twist that would change everything. John didn't know how long he stood there, staring at the text, his mind spinning in a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. Emily and Matt, his wife and his best friend. He couldn't wrap his head around it. How could they betray him like this? But the world didn't stop for him. With a heavy heart, John stormed out of his office, the sound of his footsteps echoing down the hall. As he reached the elevator, something caught his eye. A slip of paper on the floor. He bent down, and there in front of him was an envelope with a single word written on it. Urgent. John's curiosity piqued, and he tore it open without thinking. Inside, he found a letter, and his heart skipped a beat as he read the words. "John, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you, but I had no choice. What Matt told you is true. I'm leaving you for him. But before you make any rash decisions, know this. I never truly loved you. Matt has been manipulating both of us for years. The business, the affair, it's all been part of his plan. I'm sorry, but I've been a pawn in his game too. Don't trust anyone. Find out what he's really after." The letter dropped from John's hand, his world spinning even faster. It was too much to process. Matt, his best friend, had been playing him all along. The affair, the betrayal, the business takeover, it was all part of something much bigger. As the elevator doors closed behind him, John's rage surged. The pain he felt was now overshadowed by a burning desire for revenge. He needed to confront Matt, but more than that, he needed to uncover the truth. Why had Matt done this? What did he stand to gain? John's phone buzzed again, but this time, it wasn't from Emily. It was from Matt, a single message flashing on the screen. "You're too late, John. The game is over." John's fists clenched. The game? What game? The pieces were falling into place, but the full picture was still a mystery. He knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about his wife or his business. Matt had been playing a much deeper game, and John was going to expose it, no matter what the cost. John spent the rest of the day in a daze, his mind reeling from the shock. The letter, Matt's message, it all felt like pieces of a puzzle he was desperately trying to put together. But it was too overwhelming. How had everything turned so quickly? One moment, he had everything. His wife, his business, his trust in the people closest to him. The next, it was all ripped away in the most painful way possible. But he couldn't stay lost in confusion. Revenge was burning inside him, and he wasn't going to let Matt get away with this. John knew he had to be smart. Rushing into confrontation might cost him everything. Instead, he needed to dig deeper. He needed to know why Matt had orchestrated such a cruel betrayal and what his true intentions were. As the night settled in, John sat in his office, staring at the financial reports that Matt had been going over earlier. It wasn't just about his marriage. It was about the business, too. Was it really a hostile takeover, or was there something more sinister at play? John's eyes scanned the documents, but it wasn't the numbers that caught his attention. It was a series of transactions that seemed out of place. Large sums of money being moved, strange investments in businesses that had no connection to his company. The dots were beginning to connect, but the full picture still eluded him. He pulled out his phone and called his lawyer, Mike. I need everything on Matt, his accounts, his investments, everything. I don't care what it takes. I need to know what he's been doing behind my back. Mike's voice was calm but concerned. John, are you sure about this? You're dealing with someone who knows how to play the game. Don't go down this path unless you're ready for what it might reveal. John didn't hesitate. I'm ready. I've lost everything already. Now I'm going to take Matt down. The next few hours felt like an eternity. Mike promised to send the information by morning, but John couldn't wait. He had a plan forming in his mind, one that would expose Matt for the fraud he was. The more he thought about it, the clearer the truth became. This wasn't just about business or infidelity. It was about control. Matt had always been jealous of John's success, but now it seemed like he wanted it all for himself. As dawn broke, John received the files from Mike. With each page he turned, his suspicions were confirmed. Matt had been funneling money into a series of shady investments, all with the goal of gaining control over John's company. It was all part of a long con scheme to steal everything: his business, his wife, and his future. John's anger surged, but so did something else: clarity. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about taking back control of his life. He wasn't going to let Matt win. Not now, not ever. John stood outside Matt's office, his heart pounding in his chest. He had everything he needed: the evidence, the plan, and a burning need for justice. The betrayal still stung, but it had been replaced by something fiercer: a desire to take back what was rightfully his. No more games, no more lies. It was time to face Matt head on. He pushed open the door, his eyes locking onto Matt, who was sitting behind his desk, looking unusually calm. The smirk that had once irritated John now made his blood boil. You thought you could take everything from me, didn't you? John's voice was low but seething with anger. Matt didn't flinch. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms across his chest. You were never really in control, John. You just didn't see it. John slammed the file of evidence onto the desk. This is your game, Matt. Stealing from me? Ruining my life? You've been playing me for years, haven't you? For the first time, Matt's confidence faltered. His eyes shifted to the documents John had laid out, but he quickly regained his composure. You don't understand, John. It was never about you. It was always about the business. I built it, I supported it, and you were just the face of it. You don't have the vision, the drive. I do. John's fist clenched at his sides. So you thought betraying me, ruining my life, was the answer? You thought this would make you the better man? Matt's smirk faded, replaced by a cold look of finality. It was the only way. You were weak. You wouldn't have let me in otherwise. Emily, the business, it was all a means to an end. And now I have everything I wanted. John's mind reeled. The words were like daggers, but it wasn't enough. He needed more than just an admission. He needed Matt to understand the consequences of his actions. The revenge John had been planning was far from over. You're wrong, John said, his voice steady despite the fury burning inside him. You might have my business, my wife, but you've lost something you'll never get back. You've lost your humanity, and that's something I'm going to make sure everyone knows. Matt stood up, his eyes narrowing. You can't win, John. It's over. No, John replied, his lips curling into a small, satisfied smile. It's just beginning. He turned and walked out of Matt's office, the weight of the confrontation still lingering. But there was a new fire in his chest. This wasn't just about vengeance anymore. This was about making sure Matt paid for everything he had taken from John, and more. The game had changed, and John was ready to play. The days after the confrontation with Matt felt like a blur. John had no time to relax or reflect. His mind was racing, consumed by thoughts of what came next. He couldn't let Matt get away with this. He couldn't just expose him in the same way Matt had torn his life apart. John needed to hit him where it hurt the most. His pride, his carefully crafted empire. John's first step was to take control of the company again. He knew that Matt had been funneling funds through various shell companies, but now with the evidence in hand, it was time to destroy everything Matt had built. It wouldn't be enough to just destroy Matt's reputation. John wanted his empire to crumble, piece by piece. If Matt thought he had won, John was about to show him just how wrong he was. With the help of his lawyer, Mike, John began to secretly transfer assets, reestablish control of the company, and make strategic moves to take down Matt's carefully hidden financial empire. Every transaction, every document was scrutinized. Slowly, the walls around Matt's operation began to close in, and every move John made brought him closer to his final goal: to expose Matt for the fraud he truly was. But the final twist, the one that would truly ruin Matt, came unexpectedly. John had been digging deeper into Matt's personal life and discovered something that would unravel him completely, a secret that could destroy him beyond just losing his business. Matt had been involved in illegal activities for years, and John now had the evidence to bring it all to light. Blackmail, money laundering, and even ties to dangerous organizations that Matt had tried to cover up, all of it was laid bare in front of John. John couldn't believe his eyes as he stared at the file. Matt had been so careful, but his arrogance had been his downfall. He thought he could play with fire and never get burned, but now he was about to be consumed by it. John's fingers hovered over the phone as he debated his next move. A part of him wanted to destroy Matt completely, send him to prison, ruin his life the way Matt had ruined his. But something inside him stopped. He realized that Matt's fall from grace was inevitable now. The truth would come out, and John didn't need to be the one to push him further. The system would take care of it all. Instead, John made a call to a journalist he trusted, someone who could get the story out to the public, where it belonged. He handed over everything: Matt's financial fraud, his personal wrongdoings, the affair, and the manipulation. By the time Matt figured out what was happening, it was too late. His empire collapsed in a matter of days. The business was seized, his name tarnished beyond repair, and his illicit activities exposed for the world to see. The consequences were swift and unforgiving, just like the betrayal he had inflicted on John. As John watched Matt's world unravel, he couldn't help but feel a small sense of relief. He had won, not just the battle for his business, but the battle for his soul. He had taken control, reclaimed his life, and made sure that Matt would never be able to hurt anyone again. But the victory wasn't sweet. John had lost so much along the way. His marriage was shattered, his trust broken. The pain of betrayal was still there, a constant reminder of what he had endured. But as the dust settled, John realized something. He had grown stronger. He had faced the darkness, and he had come out the other side, scarred but unbroken. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Weeks passed, and the city slowly moved on from the shocking downfall of Matt's empire. The scandal had made headlines, and the business community buzzed with whispers of betrayal, fraud, and deceit. But for John, it was far from over. The victory, though satisfying in many ways, left him feeling hollow. His business was back, but his life had been irrevocably altered. John spent his days rebuilding, but the nights were when the true weight of his loss hit him. His marriage to Emily, once full of promise and love, had crumbled beyond repair. The affair, the lies, the betrayal, it had torn them apart in ways he hadn't thought possible. Emily's departure had left a void in his life that no amount of money or success could fill. He thought about their last conversation, the one where she had admitted to everything. The guilt in her eyes had been undeniable, but it was too late. She was gone, and the damage was done. John knew deep down that no amount of revenge could fix what had been broken. The truth was, he had lost her long before the affair was exposed. She had moved on, and he had to too. Despite the lingering ache in his heart, John had learned something invaluable. His worth wasn't tied to his business, his wife, or even the revenge he had sought for so long. It had taken him losing everything to realize that the one thing he could never lose was himself. The strength he had found in the ashes of his destruction had given him a new perspective on life. As the months went by, John focused on rebuilding, not just his business, but his life. He started doing things that made him feel whole again. He took long walks in the park, reconnected with old friends, and even started volunteering at a local charity. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of peace, a peace that came not from victory, but from acceptance. Emily reached out to him once, a few months after everything had settled. Her voice on the phone was tentative, apologetic. "John, I'm so sorry. I know I've lost you, but I just wanted you to know that I regret everything. I never wanted to hurt you." John listened, but he didn't respond immediately. He had heard her regrets before. He had lived them. "It's too late, Emily," he said softly, his voice steady. "But I've moved on. I hope you find what you're looking for." And with that, he closed that chapter of his life for good. The pain of betrayal would never fully go away, but John understood now that healing wasn't about holding on to the past. It was about letting go and finding peace within. The press conferences, the legal battles, and the media frenzy surrounding Matt's fall had all come to an end. The world had moved on, and so had John. But as he sat in his office, overlooking the city skyline, a thought crossed his mind. It wasn't the business or the revenge that defined him. It was how he had rebuilt himself from the wreckage. Matt had taken everything from John, but in the end, John had taken something back that Matt could never touch: his strength, his resilience, and his ability to move forward. The past was a lesson, a painful one, but the future, that was his to shape, and he was ready.